What's going on, guys? Back again with another night shift preview this week. This week we're going to see Abrahams versus Leviathan in the EU Challenger match, taking on Buff and Jars, whoever wins that one, and then Melee Creeps Bird with Clock taking on Pauper's Pupils. So nothing that crazy changing in terms of the teams we're seeing this week. Also got announced this week, Night Shift reacquired a Intel sponsorship up until the 13th. So the next 4 night shifts are going to have a 4K prize pool, which is a huge deal for a lot of these players, essentially like doubling what they would have normally got. Because Night Shift the past couple months they've been like doing like a flat pot of about like 2K just to keep players interested, which was a great idea. And then here even more incentive to help that out. But in much bigger news, and the teams you won't be seeing this week, of course, I think most people have heard by now, was the popular Deadlock streamer Adorian will be forming his new Deadlock team, of course, with Do, Fishcake, and then the new names that are joining are Venal, and then more interesting were Parzillion and Recon. Ranger's going to be coaching, and Aether will be their analysis. Ranger and Aether, of course, with Melee Creeps before. Excuse me. So it makes sense that Ido has all these connections to Do, Fishcake, of course, and Ranger and Aether. He's worked with them before, brings them over to the team. And then Vito was someone they found through the MLC and then eventually Ido Academy, who really showed out at the recent Guildlock Invitational. And then Pars and Recon are interesting because they actually joined teams and then eventually hopped over to join this squad instead. So I think why this happened is there was a lot of breadcrumbs behind the scene that this team was going to be formed sooner rather than later. Most obviously being Ranger saying literally on stream while he was coaching for Pulsar that he is temporarily coaching Pulsar and he will be hopping over to Ido and Do's new team when it does get formed. Now it is formed, he comes over. And then also I feel like Recon and Pars joining teams and then playing literally 1 to 2 weeks and then immediately leaving the team was like kind of like a red herring of like, that's kind of weird. You know, you could assume like, oh, they just want to go stream stuff, but it was probably pretty obvious that there was another opportunity coming on the horizon. And this was the horizon that we're at now. And funnily enough, when I was just like randomly eating before I started working on some videos and stuff, Loman actually said this in a stream too.
But something wicked happened. Vague post final boss. Okay, nothing wicked actually happened. It just basically happened so that like they needed an M1 and Parzillion was like really the best M1 available, and Parzillion really just wanted to play Recon, and then like so then Lord and Zerbsy were cut for them, those two basically. But it was supposed to be Lord and Zerbsy instead. But you know, it makes sense. Parzillion and Recon have like a bunch of chemistry together. Whereas like Pars has never played with Lord or Zerbsy, so it should make sense.
Yeah, so if you didn't know, Pars and Recon duo quite a bit. They're like good buddies, so it just makes sense that they want to team together. And then of course the roster, they're the 2 roster spots that Lord Nem and Zerbsy were probably going to take, which are now like going to be gone. So and now being taken over by these two. So that's the roster. I'll probably like kind of not spend as much time on the roster for some of these people because like Ido, you know, you've seen his roster of characters. He's like the face of this team. Obviously he's known for his spirit carries like Mina and Bucket, but I guess something that people wouldn't know is like towards the end of his MLC tenure he did start picking up a lot of new stuff. So he started playing like Flex Spirit a little bit more in frontliners, so I could see him like kind of flexing his role around here. He has a good Viscous. His Abrams we saw Guildhouse is really clean, Calico, Silver, stuff like this. So I wouldn't say he's going to be their primary spirit carry, especially because Do's on the team. Do will most likely be playing the more spirit carry role, like in terms of like Celeste and Mina, if they do end up like playing these heroes. I would say Do's arguably probably the most mechanical talented player we have in NA, probably rivaled by Lomain, I would say. And when I say that, I mean I'm referring to like overall ability. So you've shown on multiple heroes, multiple roles that you're very like mechanically talented. So like when I say multiple roles, I mean like he has a good Silver, he has a good Geist, Shiv, Celeste, Apollo. Like these are not just what he's known for his spirit carry, but these are heroes that fill like different roles, like kind of like pseudo frontline or like pseudo M1 with like Lady Geist and stuff. So him and Lomain I see very on par on that level. Other stuff he's shown off is like his Infernus and his Yamato, his Shiv are all stuff that we've seen a lot from him. He's even played like a Paradox game, which I was really interested in, so I wouldn't be surprised if he like plays a little bit, tries to spread his wings a little bit more on this team too. But all in all, he will be more of like a spirit carry role for them, kind of like a P2 type of thing for this team. Would not shock me. And then Pars, a lot of people only got to see like Pars on Pulsar or have known him from his stream. I did a whole video about where when Pulsar got announced about like Pars' like competitive background, he does have esports experience with like Call of Duty and Halo, so I'm not worried about him fitting into a team despite having like a roughish start to the Pulsar. But again, Pulsar's getting beaten by already established teams, so I'm not too worried about that. He will for sure be their M1 player, like Lomain was saying. Has a ton of games. Has a second account he plays a bunch on as well. Like Haze, Lash, Wraith, Seven guys. Like you can just see like he plays a lot of stuff, but he's definitely more like M1 centric. I think Pars is going to be like a really good pro. I'm glad he's on a roster where he can show off that he can be a really good pro as well. Where the Pulsar team was more like development, and they were kind of having trouble filling their 5th and 6th slot. I think this is a much more better landing spot for Pars. And then Fishcake, excuse me. I think Fishcake is actually going to shine a lot more on this team. He's going to be a true flex player on this team. He's probably going to be picked towards the end of drafts, just like filling in with his hero, unless the stuff he plays is like super OP, say like Graves out of nowhere gets super OP. McGinnis is really OP right now, so he could get picked at the front end of draft in that sense. But I think Fishcake kind of got kind of his versatility kind of got overshined by Scion melee creeps. So I'd not be shocked if people kind of have like a much more respect for Fishcake after seeing him on this team and showing off the stuff he can play. He does play like the really weird stuff too. Like he plays like Viper, like I mentioned, Graves. He plays Bow and Grill. He plays a bunch of stuff that is like non-traditional. And so if these picks get buffed, especially with the big content patch coming, I can see Fishcake being someone who's a much more seen as like a top level pro rather than just like a flex player or like a fill player. Even though that is his role, I think people will see him as like a top 3 kind of like player in that type of role. Whereas before people kind of saw him as like a throw-in with the melee creeps guys, where I think he's gonna have a much more impact on this team. And then we get over to the new guys that weren't on the melee creeps core, like Vino. Vino had a great guild house. I think he showed off a lot of picks that a lot of people didn't know he could even play. Obviously, they found Vino through MLC/Idaho Academy. He's always a high-rated player, but then kind of really got to get thrown to an environment where he could understand like deeper laning mechanics. He could understand 6v6 a lot better, and he's obviously responded very, very well. I would say him and Birdie are probably the best candidates to come out of that academy system. Again, it's like academy system was like just like a couple weeks type of thing. But again, it's like when there's no structure versus like any amount of structure, it really, really helps some players. And I think these guys were the ones you got to see. His standout picks were like Pocket, Silver, Apollo. Had really, really good games. So he has a more like diverse cast as well. So I'm interested to see where he fits in. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays like a little more frontline for this team, just with the structure and the roles that are coming in. But I'm excited to see Vino. I think him and Birdie, like I said, were ones that I think really deserved a real shot on a top tier team. And that's why I'm also glad Birdie's getting a shot on the MLC squad. Because they clearly like learned very quickly once you put them in a structured environment. So, and then the last wild card on this team is going to be Recon. I don't know what Recon's going to be playing because they have established pros on like the heroes he plays, like Celeste, Pocket, Shiv, and Furnace, on what he's shown at least. I imagine he's going to be playing more like tempo picks, maybe like Drifter, or like maybe they'll put him on Calico some games, but Ido also plays Calico and stuff like this. So I'm curious what he's going to play. Unfortunately, with the new season, everything got reset in terms of like older picks. But even with that being said, you can see he is spamming Drifter right now. So I would not be surprised if they put him on that quite a bit. Maybe even like a couple Bebop games, Lash games, stuff like that. Playing more like Flex Spirit maybe instead of what he was more known for, which was like Spirit carries like Celeste and stuff. He also has some like Infernus games in DSI tournaments and stuff like that. But all in all, I would not be shocked if this team is gonna play more like tempo heavy style. Again, like I'm saying, Drifter picks, Calico picks, stuff like this. So comps that don't really have like true support, I would be surprised if they don't play a whole lot. Like maybe they'd put like Idol and like Viscous or something like that. Or maybe just someone like picks up an Ivy or something like that where you can still play more aggressive. Like Ivy Flight obviously lets you like show up everywhere on the map. So you can like be, again, more aggressive in the early game, more tempo centric. Would not be surprised if they play that instead of more like traditional support comps. But if the meta changes, I'll be super interested to see who kind of like fills that support role in this team. Because again, no one is like naturally playing these heroes. I wouldn't be shocked if Ido wants to pick up more heroes like that, or Fishcake would pick up more heroes like that. Who knows? But that's kind of like my look at this team. And then outside of this team, huge news that I had to include in this video, even though they're very separate topics, was obviously OCs has now left Melee Creeps. He is now joining Abrahams. And now the Abrahams roster is pretty fucking star-studded. They were already very good before, but I would say this is an upgrade. Little surprised that they decided to drop Sonya for OCs, because I would say Sonya was, to me, like a standout player on this roster. Like, I would say Taz together and Sonya were like, a lot of people like Saint has like, is very solid, but is doesn't hit like the high highs as much anymore, where I would say Sonya was someone like, he would like dominate games. His Infernus was looking really good recently. So I'm kind of surprised they dropped Sonya for OCs. It makes sense structurally because they play like that same kind of like P2 type of role, like spirit carries, and then like off M1 carries like Infernus and stuff like that. Or OCs has been moving that direction more so, I should say. Especially when you were seeing what he was playing with like melee creeps and stuff. So a bit surprised that they swapped him out for that. Swapped those two out, I should say. But all in all, it is an upgrade. OCs is better than Sonya. So Hams is gonna get an even more star-studded roster. I think this roster has a much more opportunity to take on Buff and Drawers, because Buff and Drawers is clearly the best team in the world right now. So you make moves like this because it's just like you have to change something, because clearly like Buff and Drawers' ceiling is just very, very hard to match right now. Which, and that again led to even more shuffle. So then Freemock gets dropped from Leviathan, and Sonya will now join Empty Dreams on Leviathan. Obviously, Empty Dreams just got dropped from Abraham's like a week or two ago. Again, Abraham's looking to make like menial moves to try to like get small advantages to get up to the Buff and Drawers level. So now he will join Empty Dreams on this team. I like this Leviathan team quite a bit. Again, I always worry about Leviathan is it seems like their in-game decision-making and macro is very poor. I wonder if there's like an IGL problem going on this team, because they just seem very unorganized. They've even been able to get leads. They played like a double pick comp with like Mo and Holiday, and they just weren't able to convert. So I think macro's the bigger problem with this team. And I don't know if these moves will fix that, but again, it's hard to say. Like maybe Sonya like gives more in-game direction than I know. Again, like you, with the Russian-speaking rosters especially, it's like, even if I was watching these guys' streams, you couldn't really pick up on what's being said unless you speak the language, right? So, and then also with this move, Leviathan is now his full Russian-speaking roster, which is really, really interesting. When they first came around, they were doing English because there was like multiple different types of speakers on the team. But now, yes, this is a full Russian-speaking roster. The same goes for Silence. So Silence is now going to be bringing Wiki back. So they had like a weird, like they dropped a couple people and they're trialing people with like Balaclava and Zikbob, and then Wiki got dropped with those two before as well. Obviously OCs was on the team before he left NA. So OCs also technically, he didn't get dropped, he left, but the other three did get dropped and they were trialing, but now they bring Wiki back. So Wiki is now back on the team again. And then they're going to add Freemock, who obviously just got dropped from Leviathan, and then Thompson, who I know very, very little about. But again, they're just like, Silence seems very, very open with like roster changes, swapping people out. And again, I would say despite losing OCs, I think they're still doing a good job of adding like bigger names, more established talent. I think Freemock's a big get for them. If the Empty Dreams thing doesn't work out in Leviathan, or Sonya doesn't work out, this is again like the next step down. Like one of these guys could join this team. And then Silence has done a great job of just picking up like established talent time and time again, and just like kind of going from like a C tier roster up to like a C plus, up to like a B minus. And then this, I would say, is still weaker than when they had OCs, because OC is obviously like a top level talent, and then they don't have like, I would say, that type of player anymore. But from like after losing a talent like that and not really being able to plug and play a talent like that, like finding someone off the waiver wire, like so to speak, I think this is a solid team. Like it works out. They're going to be taking on a lot of teams for that challenger slot, but that also comes with a new team coming in, because Balaclava just got dropped from this team. I shouldn't say a new team. Slice and Dice has been around for a little bit. I haven't really heard a ton about them because I'm not in the EU scene, but they have been participating in like the Gauntlet Cup that just went by. They have participated in some of these players, I should say, participated in R1. So this is again like another team that's going to be trying to get in that challenger slot. Is going to be playing in the qualifier games, the DLNS. A lot of A lot of names I don't know. Again, from the Russian speaking side of things, except Balaklava, I know from the R1 tournament and stuff like this. But this will be another team that is kind of vying for that spot. And if you're wondering, which I was too, where I was like, what is with all these Russian speaking rosters? Like, their EU is being dominated by the Russian scene right now. Like, there's clearly all these pros from Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Belarus. Like, there's all these like pros coming from these countries and committing to pro play. And it's like, honestly, it's like a pretty simple answer, where it's like, you know, $2,000 USD to some people doesn't mean a lot. Now, again, being $4,000 to these people, this money means a lot. If you can consistently, and that's why you're also seeing more aggressive roster moves in EU as well. So if you look at the Belarusian ruble, it is 0.3349 of $1. So again, if you win like $2,000 and then you split that 6 ways, it doesn't seem like a lot of money to some people, but to these people, this obviously means a lot, especially if you are in Ukraine. It means even more so to you, especially if you are in Russia. Holy moly, the Russian currency is quite dire at the moment with obviously the war conflict going on. So again, like normal people who are just trying to like make a living and live in these like war-torn countries right now, committing to pro Deadlock right now is like a more viable financial opportunity than say someone who's a little more spoiled in like a more stable financial economic country right now, right? Where these guys, it makes a lot more sense. That's like young dudes are like, fuck it, I'll try to like climb the ladder. Like, look at OCs, man. Like, OCs went all the way from a team like Silence, where he was like bringing people together, had a lot of initiative, and then was like attempting to like elevate this team. And then he joined Melee Creeps, the biggest team in NA for a bit, got more spotlight on him, made him look like a more talented player. Not made him look like, showed off his talent more, and then eventually added to his pool, so showed he could pick up new heroes, swapped his role a little bit, went from more like Mina one trick and like a couple M1 picks to like a true P2 carry, can play Pocket, can play Infernus, stuff like this. And now he's on Abraham's, and now he's like consistently going to be in the running for the money match every week. So when you see the EU scene being dominated by these people, it has a lot to do with like, if you're dishing out the guap weekly, like Night Shift is, some people who don't have as much economic opportunity are really going to vie for their being at the top level and being able to get some cash, you know? So that's all that happened this week. I'll be streaming the games. The game's actually started right now. I'm kind of starting a little late right now, but thanks for watching, and I will see you guys for some Night Shift. Peace, 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 peace.